Okay, so we're going to get started now, everyone. I hope you see that the webinar is being recorded today. This is an info session as part of our California Farm to School Incubator grant program. We are doing weekly Q&As every week until the application period ends. So we want to get all the information out there. Last week, we did a more formal Q&A where I did like 35 minutes of slides and was like into the weeds of the programs. Today is a little bit more of an overview and then more time for question and answer. So if you have questions about the grant program, write them down as you go, or if you're coming here with questions today, be prepared to ask them because there will be plenty of time for that. And then if you need that more in-depth, detailed look at Farm to School and at this grant program and at the intricacies of each grant track, we have the recording available from last week on our website. If you go to the webinars tab, you can see the recording for the webinar from last week. So you'll have all of that info. All right, so let's jump into it and we'll start going about the program. So CDFA has a culture of support and collaboration. I hope that you can even tell just from the energy of this opening and introduction that we want to be collaborative. We want to work together. We want to build relationships, know who you are, know where you're from, and know how we can best support you. So as we were developing this grant program, we were thinking of you and we were asking, how can we simplify this process? How can we help people apply? How can we celebrate and validate the work that people are doing while also asking them to do more? Because that's what a grant program is. It asks people to do more and it gives them resources to do that, but it is definitely more work. And then the last question that guides our CDFA team is, how can we create lasting impact? So how can we take these programs and projects that are going to scale up with this funding? How can we make sure that that funding is sustained and that these programs can continue? So those are really important. And then for our guiding practices, we offer support and technical assistance. We have these weekly webinars for our grantees. We have office hours and peer-to-peer learning sessions. And then we also have cross-pollination across programs throughout the state. So we bring together school nutrition directors and farmers and ranchers, and we had a call with a seafood organization today. So there's so many ways that we can bring these partners together to provide support and collaboration. With some magnet tiles here for my kid. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so our purpose and priorities across the 4 grant tracks are the same. So whether you're looking at the procurement and education grant, the partnerships grant, the ECE grant, or the producer track, the priorities are the same. And it's to award competitive grants and support projects that cultivate equity, nurture students, build climate resilience, and create scalable and sustainable change. Within those 4 broad categories, we have these really specific elements that you'll see referenced in the application questions as well as in the scorecard. So here's those funding priorities. One is, are you engaging students from underserved communities? Are you serving schools located among priority populations that are especially vulnerable to the impacts of climate change? Are you including small to mid-sized California food producers in your application? Are you including veteran California food producers, socially disadvantaged California food producers, and or limited resource farm households from California? And are you including California food producers who utilize climate smart ag practices or climate smart ag production systems like certified organic or transitioning to certified organic, or other regenerative strategies that increase resilience to climate change, improve the health of communities and soil, protect water and air quality, increase biodiversity, and help store carbon in the soil? So we're hoping across all 4 grant tracks that each of our grantees will have these elements of their projects. And like I said, you'll see questions referencing this in the application. You'll see them referenced in the scorecard. And so we hope to see them referenced throughout the applications. All right, next slide, please. So there are 4 funding tracks, like I said. There's track 1, the K through 12 procurement and education grant. There's track 2, the partnerships grant. Track 3, the farm to early care and education grant. And track 4, the farm to school producer grant. To head you off on a couple of these questions we seem to get regularly. Yes, you can apply to multiple funding tracks. You can totally do that. And yes, you can apply if you have an existing California Farm to School Incubator grant. So if you were part of our first cohort of grantees, you can apply in this cohort. All right, next slide, please. Here's what to expect today is a brief overview of each funding track, a timeline, and then, like I said, the majority of our time will be in Q&A. So prep your questions as we go. All right, next slide. So track 1 will fund, I always describe it like this. This is the procurement and education grant. This is for individual school districts, county offices of ed, or direct funded charter schools in California to establish new or expand existing farm to school programs. So this is for individual school districts or school food authorities to apply. And each of these applications must include coordination between school nutrition services and the educational opportunities that the school offers, as well as procurement of California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into school meals. And you can see there's a list here of types of foods that we hope to include. If you want to, in this track, you can also employ farm to school staff and offer professional development. I also see a question in the chat from Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. Will questions from all the webinars be added to the FAQs and identified as new so we don't need to reread the entire document? We are going to organize all of the questions and answers. We're going to try to, I think we're going to try to do it by theme, but let me go to Amy and see exactly what the answer is to that.
Sure, thanks, Nick. And hi, Kathleen, that's a great question. So for the Q&A document on the website, we are going to be updating it weekly throughout the grant period starting next week. And it's organized by section of the request for applications as well as by time period. So right now they're organized by pre-application Q&A, and then next week they'll be organized by questions we received, since the application period opened up until that point. And then in terms of questions from these webinars, we aren't planning necessarily to add those to the Q&A document, but all of these webinars are being recorded and posted on the website. So you'll be able to review all of the Q&A from the webinars that way.
Yeah, thank you. And last time, it's so hard. We get so many great questions about the applications, and then the FAQs document becomes like the dictionary. So we're trying to just really pull, like, if there's a common question that continues to occur, we'll put it in FAQs. We'll update the documents and update the website and update all of that info. So check back weekly. Okay, and then Judy, for your question, we're going to get into eligibility here as well. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so that was track 1. Here's track 2. It's the Farm to School Partnerships grant. And track 2 will fund regional and statewide farm to school partnerships in California. So whereas track 1 is the procurement and education grant for individual school districts, track 2 is for partnership applications. So this will be to implement farm to school procurement and or education strategies as part of a larger regional or statewide food system development plan. So something that's going to impact an entire region or an entire community or a county level plan, something like that, not just an individual district. That's one option. Another option for track 2 is to apply to increase collaboration and coordination regionally or statewide between California food producers and school nutrition services departments to increase procurement of California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into school meals, and especially foods that are climate smart, culturally relevant from small to mid-sized food producers, veteran food producers, socially disadvantaged food producers, and or limited resource farm households. So this is that increasing regional collaboration. You're going to bring together all of the adults to make this work happen. It's a really hard job, and it requires facilitation and tons of engaged and dedicated partners. So that's that example. And then another option in track 2 is to provide farm to school procurement and or education technical assistance or capacity building regionally or statewide to support more than one farm to school implementing organization to deliver their farm to school programs. So let's say that you are a regional hub of learning as a nonprofit or as a small business or whatever it is, and you support multiple school districts in implementing farm to school, and you support multiple farms multiple school garden sites across multiple districts, this could be an option for you. So that's track 2. Okay, next slide, please. Track 3 is our Farm to Early Care and Education grant. This one will fund childcare centers in California and farm to ECE support organizations to establish new or expand existing farm to school programs that coordinate food and garden-based hands-on learning and play opportunities for young children or their families, and procure California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into meals, snacks, taste tests, and or food boxes for young children. And then especially all those priorities that we have, those types of foods. And then also to offer farm to early care and education technical assistance and or peer learning spaces to staff, teachers, and families to provide that extra wraparound support. So this Farm to ECE grant is really the procurement and education grant, but for ECE community. And Amy, we have Judy's question here in the chat about they have a TK to 12 district. Can TK be included for track 1?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And that's a great question, Judy. The answer is yes. For track 1, if your school district has a preschool program, a Head Start program, or a transitional kindergarten program, you can absolutely include those programs and those students in your track 1 project. And then in addition to that, if your district is interested in maximizing funding for early care and education, then you can also look to see if you're eligible for and interested in applying to track 3.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, and then we'll go to track 4, the producer grant. So the producer grant is another of our new grant tracks with our expanded funding. And track 4 will fund California food producers to increase production, processing, and or distribution of whole or minimally processed foods for a school food marketplace. Track 4 will also fund California food producers to provide hands-on educational opportunities for youth that complement their food sales or donations to schools. And in order to be eligible, a producer must show evidence of an established relationship with at least one school nutrition services department. And the reason how we're defining that established relationship, we have a letter of intent. That's a template that goes along with the application. And it just allows that school nutrition department to say, yes, I know this human being. Yes, I plan to work with them. Yes, we're in. And otherwise, we could just get flooded with applications from producers who don't know schools and really, how successful would that grant project be? We're not sure. So if you're a producer on this call, or if you're working with producers, you don't need a grant to work with schools. We'll help you connect to schools at no cost. Michael, who's on the call today, Michael Ackley Grady, he's our farm to school marketplace lead, and he works with producers across the state in connecting to schools. So if you don't already have an established relationship with a school, talk to Michael, email our team, and we can help set you up. If you do already have an established relationship with a school nutrition department, if you've been selling to them or working with them on field trips or whatever, then you're eligible to apply to scale up that work. And that's what the producer grant is all about. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here's the timeline. It's May 9th, 2022. The application period opened. So that was a couple Mondays ago. There's an online portal to apply through WiseHive. And if you have questions about WiseHive, we're happy to talk that through today. There's also a video that talks through how to use it that Amy reported. So thank you, Amy. Weekly throughout the application period, we're doing these webinars, which are helpful, hopefully. Hopefully you can ask your questions and get the info that you need. And then applications are due July 6th. From July to August, it'll go through the review process. So first thing, when you submit your application, our CDFA team is going to look at it and make sure you checked all the boxes to submit a real application, that it's complete, that we can actually score it. Once that process is done, then we'll go to a team of external reviewers. So farm to school experts from across the nation will then review the applications against our scorecard that we've developed. So then they'll review them. Multiple people will read each application and score it. And then we'll go through and organize all of that and announce grantees in September. So that's the timeline. September is notification. Because we're the state, we can't just give you the money right away. So there is this establishing grant agreement period from September to December. Then in December 1st, we're projecting that projects will start. So December 1st is the start date, and then end date is November 30th, 2024. So you can see it's a pretty long application period, or a pretty long implementation period for your grant. Okay, next slide. Questions. So we're already to questions. So that was the overview of each of the grant tracks. So if you have specific questions, whether it's about eligibility or about a specific question about WiseHive or the application, we're happy to answer it here, and we're just going to stay on. So in order to ask a question, you can use the raise hand feature. So you pop it up on the bottom. It's under reactions. So if you click reactions and then raise hand, it'll allow you to raise a hand, and then I'll call on you and you can ask your questions. You can also email us your questions and we will respond to you as quick as we can. So that is the email address there, cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov. Okay, and then I see a question from Derek in the chat, and then I'll go to Pauline with her hand up. So Derek, regarding the scoring metric for the application, will awards be granted to highest score first and then move down to lower scoring applications? Within each grant track, yes. So it will be the highest scoring applications will receive funding. And then we will see the competition across the grant track for all 25.5 million. So it'll work that way. And then I'm going to Pauline. Pauline, what's your question?
Hi there, Nick.
Hi.
Another silly question from me. The last time we were talking, I thought I heard something about a certain amount per child. Did I hear that?
Yeah, so for track 1, the procurement and education grant, there's a funding formula based on the number of students enrolled in your school site or enrolled in your school district. You multiply it by $10 a kid. And then the minimum award is 150 grand, unless you specify you want less, because sometimes 150 grand is a lot to handle. So the awards will be based on that funding formula unless you want to go lower than that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that wasn't for track 3, ECE?
Correct. For track 3, you just ask how much you want. You just request it in that beginning stage of the application.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
And that's a good question. So track 1 is the only track within award funding formula. And that's because there's so much variation across school districts. Some are huge, some are teeny tiny. All the rest, you just get to choose how much you think you need for your project. Okay, and I'm going to raise hands first, and then we'll go through the chat. So Camille, I have you next. How's it going, Camille?
It's good. Thanks, Nick. So I'm here from Common Threads. I had a question about track 1 and the procurement piece. So I know it says procurement, obviously procurement is part of the project for school meals. Would procurement for education programs like an after-school program where students prepare healthy meals, or like an in-school nutrition education program where students are preparing healthy snacks, would we be able to procure ingredients under the grant for those types of projects too, or does it need to be for school meals too?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you would be allowed to use funds for that, for after-school programs. And the purchases would still have to be in alignment with the grant, which is whole or minimally processed, 100% California grown, for those educational initiatives. So you'd still have those parameters around it, but that would be allowable. So yes. And then the other thing to note and remember is that in track 1, each grant application needs to incorporate procurement for school meals as well as educational programming. So you don't have to use your budget for procurement for school meals if you're already doing a ton of that with that school district. Some of them are already maxing out local food budgets. So we wanted to give flexibility on that, but in the project narrative, you will need to explain both sides of that, the procurement piece and the education piece.
Okay, so both procurement for school meals and education, which may include some procurement as well.
Exactly, that's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Elena, I see you're next. Hopefully I got your name right.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. Yeah, my question is kind of along those lines, but specifically regarding track 2 and track 4. If the way that education was conducted was through, say, day camps or a summer program, is that allowable? Of course, talking to our schools and how they could be involved in that, but if they were okay with being involved, would that work for those tracks?
Yes, that would totally be allowable. And you just need the school district to say that that's what they want to do, right?
Yeah.
And make
okay.
sure that everyone's on the same page, and you'll put that in the project narrative and in the support letters, like it can be evident throughout that application.
Okay.
And some of our grantees in this round have done summer camps and had great success. So I think it's Arcata, is that right, Amy? Did a summer gardening camp or a summer chef's camp or something like that, and,
cool.
and enjoyed it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay.
It's hard because that's when all the best food, that's when all my favorite foods grow, at least.
True. That's
So
the other
you want to
thing
get them out to
too.
the orchard. Like, how are we not eating cherries right now? So
Right.
all of those
Exactly.
great things. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. And then my other question too was with track 2, specifically question number 3 on the portal. It asks if your partner is a producer. What about the case that you're the applicant, you're a nonprofit, and you're also the producer? Just explain that. Is that, because I think there's a box to explain it. So I just want to make sure that was the right way to go about it.
Yeah, let me hand that one to Amy, because Amy's our Wise Hive expert.
Thanks, Nick. Elena, do you mind repeating the question?
Okay, yeah. Number 23 on track 2 asked to explain a little bit about if you are if your partner is a producer, and how in that relationship. And so in this case, the nonprofit applicant is also the producer, but we wouldn't have like another partner that's an external producer, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. I'm going back and reading the question just to make sure I have the context. So the question says, and for everyone on the call, number 23 in track 2, procurement partners, and this is under the healthy, equitable, resilient food system category. So it's saying if you checked any of the options in the question above about procurement partners who fit any of those healthy, equitable, resilient food system categories, please describe the producers with whom you plan to partner who meet that criteria. And so you're saying that the nonprofit applying to track 2 is also a producer that meets that criteria in the previous question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you would just explain that, and yeah, however it makes sense for you to kind of describe that works.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for, just want to double check on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you. And that's why we're doing these Q&As, and why the Wise Hive application is open, so that you can go look at it and then come to this with your question, right? And like just get the answer direct in this easy way. So thank you for bringing that. Do you have any others?
That's all for me for now. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. So then I'm going to go into the chat for everyone. If you would prefer to raise your hand, you could still do that. So let me go back up here. It looks like Kathleen had the next one. So if a previous grantee wants to propose a completely different project for 2022, how would we respond to the question about how the new grant will supplement the existing grant and how it will ensure the sustainability of the existing grant? So if you're a current grantee and you're applying again, basically, we just want to know how these things are going to stitch together and if there is going to be an overlap. At the state, we're just trying to make sure that our dollars are not being like, you're not double dipping and getting state money to do the same thing twice, right? So we just want to make sure they're individual projects. So you could just say that this is a completely different project than our track 2 or than last year's application, and here's how they differ. And that's all you would have to do. Yeah. And how it will ensure the sustainability of the existing grant might be the hard part, I guess, that second piece. So I think you could say, I mean, I don't know exactly what they are, but I think if you're funding like a separate piece of the school food system, you could just explain that, you know, or if you're saying this is the next evolution I think that would be okay too. The idea could be sustained even if the how is different. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to the next one then in the chat. Kathleen, raise your hand or go back in the chat if you need follow-up. It's from Elizabeth. Hi. We are determining the scope of our track 2 proposal. Does serving a broader geographic area and reaching a larger number of students necessarily increase the competitiveness of a proposal? So what we always say when people ask us about competitiveness is to look at the scorecard and look at the most important scoring categories on there. It's community need is the most important scoring category across each of the, well, across the, especially in track 2, I guess I'll stay specific. So in track 2, community need is 40 out of 100 points. So that asks, who are you serving? And are you serving communities with the greatest need? So a larger geographic area and larger number of students doesn't necessarily increase the competitiveness of a proposal, but serving students and communities with the greatest need does. So I would look at those scoring categories and focus your work on those. So it's community need. Then the next one is healthy, equitable, resilient food system. So how is your project contributing to that? And then I think it's your project narrative those are the 3 highest scoring categories. So I would focus on those. Okay.
I also wanted to jump in on that one to add to what Nick said. And he was referencing the review criteria. Great idea to look at the review criteria for the track or tracks you're interested in. And specifically for track 2, question 17 about project narrative, you'll see that part of that question asks how will your project make regional or statewide food system impact that meaningfully primary school implementing organization, and what will the scale of that impact be? And then the review criteria mirrors that. And for the points for that question, it says, the most points part of that is if the applicant also clearly demonstrates how the project will make regional or statewide food system impact that meaningfully supports more than one from school implementing organization and what the scale of that impact will be. So that's something that's important to make sure you demonstrate in that project narrative section. And we've gotten this question about like, how do we define a regional? We don't have a definition of regional for this application. It's kind of up to the applicant to define what that means for them, and then to demonstrate how the project will make a regional or statewide food system impact that meaningfully supports more than one farm to school implementing org.
Thank you, Amy. And thank you, Amy, for jumping in because I had to panic to go get my computer charger while you were responding. So it was great. Thank you. Okay, Julie has the next question in the chat. In track 1, does the educator have to be a teacher or can they be a volunteer, parent, or food service employee? It can be any of those things. That's flexible. What we do have in there is just how is it connecting to the procurement initiatives. So an educator can be anyone. We've seen it be student interns. We've seen it be teachers or volunteers, garden coordinator that gets hired. Sometimes it's a food service employee. So that is flexible. Okay, going to the next one. Pam, we are a small community trying to work together and not compete for funding. Do you ever fund 2 very different projects for the same track in the same community county? It has happened. We have last year's grantees. I have a map of them and there is some overlay in there. However, we do encourage collaboration across a community and county. So especially in track 2, we want to spread out those geographically to each of the regions within the California Farm to School Network. So I would say that we could do it, but it will, if we have a lot of competitive applications, they will be spread out geographically. Yeah, Amy, anything to add on that one? No, okay. All right, so I'm going back to Derek in the chat. In the budget worksheet for track 4 under question 2, it says percent FTE. What does this mean? Amy, can you explain that one?
That's a great question. Yeah, that means percent full-time equivalent. So my understanding of this is that full-time equivalent is 100%. So if somebody is, 100% of their work week is dedicated to this like role or these activities, then that's 100% FTE. But say, it's actually going to be half their time, 50% of their work week is going to be to these activities, then it would be 50% FTE.
Yep, exactly. Okay. And then Kathleen, I see the next question is for track 3. If a farm to school support organization is also a Head Start grantee and operates Head Start childcare centers, is the organization eligible to apply even though Head Start is part of the applicant entity? Or does the childcare center need to be a separate entity that we partner with? Really good question. Amy, what do you think for track 3?
I'm rereading the question one more time, so give me a second. This is a good one. So yeah, for track 3, there's like 2 buckets of eligibility. So one is childcare centers, and that could be a single site childcare center, multi-site childcare center, or a public school district with like a preschool or Head Start or TK program. And then the other eligibility bucket, Kathleen, that you referenced in your question is exactly right, Farm to ECE support organizations, and that could include a Head Start grantee. So a Head Start grantee that operates Head Start childcare centers would be eligible. Are you asking if both the Head Start grantee and the childcare centers it operates can each apply separately?
Hi, this is
Hi,
my
Beth.
question. No, I'm not asking if they can apply separately. I'm asking if your partner can be part of your own organization. Since you have to have the 2 partners, but it's just one organization.
Oh, yes, I think so. And I'm still learning how Head Start and ECE works, so I might need your help on understanding this. But so you're saying this is an organization that's a Head Start grantee, and you're working with childcare centers under your umbrella. And since the Track 3 application requires you to have 2 ECE providers as partners named in your application, you're wondering if one of the childcare centers under your organization's umbrella can be that partner?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the partners have to be separate entities from each other. Because
no, I don't.
Our organization is does a lot of farm to school work with schools as well, but we'd like to start our Head Start programs implementing farm to school activities as well.
That's so exciting. Yeah, the answer is those childcare centers that you serve, they don't have to be separate entities from you to be your partners.
Okay.
So that's the
answer I wanted.
Okay, good. Yeah, if you're a Farm to ECE support org and you have like childcare centers or ECE providers under your umbrella, like say you're a CACFP daycare home sponsor or something, and you have providers under your umbrella that are daycare homes, they can be your partners. So yes, the answer is yes. Thanks for helping me out on that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then I see Pauline, you have your hand up too.
Yes, I do. Question number 1, we must have a partner for ECE.
So great question. Hi, Pauline. Yeah, for the Track 3 application, if you are applying as a Farm to ECE support organization, then part of the application asks you to have a letter of support from at least 2 different early care and education providers to show that you have that support and buy-in from organizations that are directly serving young children.
Okay, we do not. We have we're the Office of Education, and we have state preschools. Within our state preschools, some of our classrooms do have Head Start programs within them. So because we're doing state preschools, we're not the organization above, they're our own state preschools, then we don't need to have the partner. But if we did need to have the partner, we already partner with Head Start within those state preschools. Does that make sense?
I believe so, yeah. if you're a county office of education and you have state preschools, you could just get a letter of support from whoever is running the preschool.
Okay, so the director of the state preschools, but so we do need to have a partner as state preschools. I know, leave it to me, ask the questions.
Oh no, I'm so glad you're asking, because track 3 is a brand new track this year, and our team is we're new to the ECE world. So these questions are really helpful to help us understand if the application makes sense. So I think if you're an agency with state preschools, you just kind of, I think, identify in the application if you think you fit more of the farm to ECE support organization role or the multi-site childcare center role, if like those sites are your own sites.
Yes,
And
they are.
okay, yeah, so you might actually fit more into that bucket then, and kind of go through the application and see if those questions maybe make more sense.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, try it out. And if you have more questions, email us and we can do a follow-up call too.
Okay.
Because I think this will be like Amy said, ECE, it's like its own universe of letters and oversight, and there's a lot of overlap. And so we're really interested in like figuring it out and just keeping it simple. So please, yeah, email a follow-up, and we'll coordinate that call to make sure we understand it all and can provide clearer guidance too.
Beautiful. Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so then back to the chat. The next question that I see is from Martha. Hi, Martha. Okay, for track 1, if the food producer is a nonprofit doing the growing work with high school students in school farm labs, who do we say is the producer? First of all, sounds rad. Love it. Super exciting. So it depends, I think, on for track 1. You're a nonprofit, and you're just operating on the school grounds. Is that right?
We're the school who's applying, and we're operating on school grounds with our long-term not-for-profit garden partner.
Yeah, and you're going to procure from them?
No, we're going to procure from what we grow on the school property.
Yeah, I would say if it's a farm that you're growing on the school property, I think you could put that nonprofit as the thing. But is it more that the students are growing it or more that the nonprofits are growing it?
The students are growing it under the nonprofit supervision.
What do you think, Amy? My gut is saying, well, are they actually producers, or is it more like they're educators, you know?
Hi, is this for the Healthy, Equitable, Resilient Food System section of the app, which asks about producer partners?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I guess my feeling on it is kind of however the applicant interprets
Yeah,
the
that's
partner.
fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. So if the nonprofit is a producer, like if they're a farmer, then I would think you could put that in there, that you'll be procuring from them, and here's how you work with them, because you get to explain that too, I think. So I would say yes, and then just explain it in addition to any of the other producers you might be procuring from.
If we the school are the primary producers that are going to be who Nutrition Services procures from.
Yeah.
Do we have to get quotes from other local producers?
It really has varied. Some school districts do it differently when procuring from themselves. We can send you a note with some follow-up information about that. It really does depend on each situation. Some schools have done micro purchases, I know, from their own farms, and that's kind of handled it with that new $50,000 limit. But others have set it up differently. So we can connect with you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And where's your school district at, Martha? Which one is it?
The El Monte Union High School District.
Amazing. Love it. Okay. So we'll follow up with you on those specifics on procurement. And then we see a question from Scott. Hey, Scott. Hope everything's good down there in Riverside. We're looking to keep our food hub, the Riverside Unified School District Food Hub, funded, and we deliver and support farm to school programs for 7 to 10 regional school districts. Would Track 2 be the best funding for that? Yes, I think food hubs, work collaboratively in Track 2. I think that would be a great option, since a food hub, you're not just supporting one individual school district, you're supporting multiple districts, and it is like a regional hub for small farmers as well as for schools. That definitely fits into Track 2 for sure. And Track 2, also, the funding goes up to $500,000, so it will be scaled up. It'll help you scale, hopefully. Okay, and then the last question I see is from Kathleen. Who should letters of support be addressed to? What a great question. I think you can just address them to CDFA. I don't think you need a specific person. Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions from people on the call today? Whether it's something really specific or really broad, all good with us. Is there anything else we could do to help you today? Okay, so here's some options. We can stay on while you look at everything. Otherwise, class is dismissed for you. You can go if you need to go. One thing we are thinking we could do is go through our website and give a little tour of the website to make sure that everything is helpful there. But does anyone have any questions before we do that little web tour? Gwen, I see you just came off mute. Are you there?
Yes.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you so much.
Hi. Okay, great. I'm located in San Bernardino County, a small rural community, Newberry Springs, and of course we have one elementary school, and that's probably no daycare centers at all. So I'm trying to figure. I have a couple things. I need to figure out how we're producers, but we also have a nonprofit. Want to really see if we could get something set up. The community really needs things. We've done a summer program in the past with a program in LA County, and it was feeding kids breakfast and lunch. So I'm just wondering, gosh, we probably qualify for a lot of stuff, but wondering the most effective way for us, like I say, as a producer and nonprofit, to implement something here in the community. And I know that may be way off of what you guys can address. Okay, but good.
We can help you address that. And so first, I want to make sure that Michael on our team will be reaching out to you to talk about more specifics. Michael will be talking to you about more specifics about like different models that could work and what other similar organizations could be doing throughout the state. So he can have a one-to-one with you on all of that. And then in general, I would say the grant offers flexibility. The only thing that you need across any of those grant tracks is a clear letter of support or partnership from that local school. So the school could apply in Track 1 and contract with you to do, they could purchase food from you and they could contract with you for education and those other things. That could be an option in Track 1. In Track 2, I don't know, that one's more regional. So you would need a lot of partners. It doesn't sound like that one would be a clear fit, but maybe. In the ECE track, you said there's no childcare center, so that one could be out. But then in Track 4, the producer track, you could apply with just a letter of support from that school district, a letter of partnership to implement any of those activities like you talked about, whether it's a farm field trip or increasing production to sell to that school, anything in between there you could do. So I would say Michael will reach out on our team, but does your school district, do you know if that local school, if they serve school lunch?
I'm sure that they do, the Unified School District is, well, it's located in one of the other towns, you know, not far, that serve Silver Valley Unified School District,
Mhm.
pretty much. We're
Yeah,
not that far from Barstow, but you know, this is our school district, yeah. And
yeah. Well, we can help make if you need an introduction to that school district, we can help make an introduction if you don't know them. You know, we can send a note with some information, and you know, then what we would encourage is for any of those people from that district, if they have questions, to join one of these Q&As too, so that they can review the material and ask and answer questions and help that partnership grow.
okay, perfect. Yeah, I wanted to know the protocol going. I do know some of them, talked to some, been to school board meeting, but yeah, this the intro would be important.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, very good.
We don't
Thank
know
you
them
so
yet.
much.
Yeah, we don't know them yet, so we'll see how it goes. But we hope, you know, there's, you know, it's not till July 6th, so there's a lot of time still to coordinate something and get a plan together. So we're happy to help you with that, and Michael will reach out.
Okay, great, excellent. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you, Gwen. Thanks for joining
great.
today.
Gwen, you got my message with my email, correct?
Let's see.
Chat.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see it. Greatly
Perfect.
at cdfa.ca.gov.
Yep.
Okay. Very
Yeah.
good.
And
Okay.
then we have your info too from
Wonderful.
registering for today, so we'll set that up.
Okay. Very
Yeah,
cool.
thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. All right.
thank
Look
you
forward
all.
to it.
Mhm. Okay, anybody else on the
Working with
call
you
today
guys.
have questions? We have, I don't know, 20-something people still on. Anyone else? Okay, well then, if you need to go, you can go. Otherwise, Amy is going to show, can you give a little web tour, Amy, of our grant website and show people where things are?
Sure, happy to. Let me pull it up.
Oh, it's so fun to see all these names in one place. Hi, Denise. Good to see you again.
All right, so this may or may not look familiar. This is the Farm to School Grant Program website. So if you need the link, it's cdfa.ca.gov/CAF2S grant. So that's how you get to this page. And at the top are just some pictures for inspiration of cool farm to school work happening in the state. As you scroll down, this just talks about the funding from the state for this grant program. As you scroll further, this talks about that overall purpose of the grant program. Here's the program timeline about when applications are due, when review is happening, and when we're going to announce awards. And then as you scroll down here, there's lots of options to explore. So each of these will expand when you click on the title. So the first one is for funding tracks. It just kind of gives that overview of the 4 different tracks that Nick discussed at the beginning of this session. The next one shows you the press release announcing that applications are open, and also the request for applications. So this is a great document to look through with all of the info about eligibility, allowable costs, the review process, the application and review criteria, and all sorts of good info about the grant. And then this next section shows you one document per funding track that has the complete application questions and review criteria for each track. So this is a really great document to look through when you're developing your application to see how the External Technical Review Committee is going to score the application. So that's a great thing to keep in mind. And it can also help you to kind of draft responses to the application questions. But I should just note that the questions in the online portals may slightly differ from what are in these documents, like particularly formatting and stuff like that. And then also all applications need to be through the online portal. So the way you get to those is under this tab. So this tab, Online Application Portal Links, has a separate link to each application portal. So if you open that up, then it looks like this. For example, this is track 1. And so if you already have an account from last year, you can sign in using that. If you need an account, then you scroll down and click sign up and get started that way. And once you have an account for one of the funding tracks, you can use that same account for the other 3 funding tracks. So these other 3 portals to sign in. This next section has the application templates. So you can also access these through the online application portals. But the application templates are the budget worksheet. So that there's a different tab for each funding track based on which track you're applying to. And that is what you fill out for the budget and narrative section of the application. Then there's a project work plan template. This is only for tracks 1, 2, and 3. And that's a component of those applications. Then there's a letter of intent template. Nick referenced this earlier. This is only for track 4 for the producer track. And then there's this additional organizational data worksheet. This is only for track 2 and only if needed based on the number of partners you have. Then this next section is resources. So this is an eligibility decision tree to help you decide which track or tracks to apply to based on eligibility. This is a previous grant recipient's decision tree. So if you received a Farm to School Incubator grant last year and are curious to learn more about how you can apply to this one, there's some good info in there. And then this is a video tutorial for using those online grant application portals in WiseHive, if you're curious about how to set up an account and how to navigate those portals. Then we're almost done. This next tab is questions and answers. So this document contains the full Q&A so far for this grant program, and we'll be updating this weekly starting next week with questions we receive and the answers we provide to summarize those and make them available. So you can check that out if you're interested in more info. Then this webinar section, this is what we're all here for today. So this is the webinar slide deck. This is the full slide deck that we used last week with all of the details about eligibility that we went over last week and scoring and things like that. This is the recording from last week with that more comprehensive overview of the program. And it also has the Q&A we received at the end of that session included. And then this is the webinar we're here for today. So once the recording is ready from today, we'll post that on here as well. And then if you're interested in these Q&A sessions, you can register here for those. Then this section is the summary of the public comment period that happened earlier this year. So if you're interested in seeing the public comments we received, we summarized those here and also included our responses to all of those. And then this last section is a call for external technical reviewers. So like Nick mentioned, the external technical review committee that's going to be scoring all of the applications based on that review criteria from earlier is made up of people across the nation who have expertise and experience in farm to school. And the way to sign up for that is to fill out this interest form. And we just want to note that applicants to the program may not participate in the external technical review. And then the last section, this is from last year. So this is previous grant awards. If you're interested in learning about the projects that received funding last year, you can read about those here. And that might provide some inspiration for you. So yes, that is the website.
Okay, thank you, Amy, and thank you everyone for joining today. So if you have any other questions, please email us. It's cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov. You can email us your questions in between these Q&As, and you'll get answers and responses from us as soon as we have them. And next week, we will have another webinar. And Amy just had it on there. What's the date of the next week's one? Here's how to use the website. You go to the webinars tab and it'll pop it out. So May 24th next week, we will have another Q&A webinar. So we encourage you, join again as you go through WiseHive, as you hit those application questions, ask again. send us the notes, send us the questions. We're here to help you. So thank you all for joining today, and we look forward to seeing all your questions. All right, thanks y'all. Thank you.